Our next speaker is Dr. Deyansh Mishra, who's a consultant vitreoretina and ocular oncology of Shankara Group of Eye Hospitals, Bangalore, and a very capable surgeon of repute. He's going to take us on an interesting topic, retinoblastoma.
Thank you, man. Can I have the screen share? Tech team, can I have the screen share?
So you will have to do the screen share. Sir.
Do the screen share.
Okay, I've got it. Okay.
The bottom green, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is my screen visible? Hopefully, I'm audible too.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you, AIOS. Thank you, ARC. Thank you, Dr. Srinivas and Dr. Chitra Madam for giving us the opportunity to present. So my topic for today is how to approach a case of retinoblastoma. So I would be covering the topic in this subtopics. The first and foremost is the history. So if you get a case of retinoblastoma, we should ask regarding the antenatal history, whether the mother had any illness, any drug intake or vaccination which she has taken before. Birth history, like whether the child is mature, premature, type of delivery. Postnatal history, like at the time of presentation, what was the age, and history of trauma, squint, or any other illness which the child is having. Most importantly, we should ask for is the family history, because if the parents are having retinoblastoma, the risk of having the retinoblastoma in the child is also high. What complaints the child can present with? The most common complaints are leukocoria or strabismus, as you can see in this child. The other uncommon ones are hyphema, vitreous hemorrhage, ocular inflammation. This can also mimic ocular inflammation or retinoblastoma. Hypopyon, which can be either mobile or non-mobile, which would be seeding into the anterior chamber, the non-mobile ones. It can also present as pseudo-orbital cellulitis in certain cases. And yes, very rare presentation, we can see this fungating mass coming out of the eye or the whole eye getting proptosed. This is called as extraocular retinoblastoma. So when we are examining the child, what all should be looked at? So as we can see, the child has to be comfortably seated either in parent's lap or either the child should be made to lie down. We should try to identify the origin of leukocoria like cornea, lens, or other things. Anterior chamber, if we are evaluating, we need to try to identify if it's having hypopyon, nodules, that may be either retinoblastoma nodules, neovascularization, or if the lens is having cataract, or what kind of reflex it is. Is it a white reflex or a yellow or orange reflex, which is called as xanthochoria? And most importantly, when we are doing an indirect ophthalmoscopy, yes, the child are uncooperative, but at least we should try to identify the posterior pole, the disc and macula, if there are tumors over there. If the child is old enough, we can try to indent, because the retinoblastoma can present as peripheral tumors, as you can see over here. Investigations which should be done in retinoblastoma, yes, the most common investigation which most of us ophthalmologists would have is a B scan, where we need to look at calcification or a tumor mass arising from the retina. The other investigation which is of choice is an MRI. If it's a unilateral retinoblastoma, what all needs to be seen in MRI? We need to personally review the films to look for optic nerve involvement or extraocular involvement, and yes, the confirmation of diagnosis. If the child is having a bilateral retinoblastoma, except what we have discussed earlier, most important is to rule out the trilateral retinoblastoma in a bilateral case. CT scan is not a choice of investigation in retinoblastoma, because we have to avoid the high radiation because of the CT scan. That can be a risk of having secondary malignancy. What are the differential diagnoses? The most common differential diagnosis of retinoblastoma is the Coats disease. Retinoblastoma presents in early decades, like less than 5 years. It is mostly bilateral. Coats is usually present in the first decade, 2 to 10 years of age. It is usually unilateral, and vitreous seeds are common in retinoblastoma. The reflex or the cat's eye reflex, as we can see in the lower image, it's white in cases of retinoblastoma and it's yellow to orange in cases of Coats disease. And vascular formations, malformations are more important. Even if the retina is completely detached, as you can see, those vascular malformations can very well not be missed. Other important things are the calcium. As we can see, either a CT scan or an MRI or a B scan would show more calcification, except in cases of Coats, it would not show calcification, it would show cholesterol. And most importantly, when we are doing a clinical examination, we can see that in retinoblastoma, there would be a blood vessel which would be entering into the tumor cavity, as compared to a Coats, which we would see subretinal yellow exudates, which are cholesterol, and the blood vessels would be going above it. Other important differential diagnoses are ROP or retrolental fibroplasia, where the history of prematurity would be there, NICU stay, oxygen, total RD would be there, but there would be no calcification. It can have a developmental or congenital cataract, where the eye would be coiled. no mass lesion or no calcification would be found out. Some retinal complications like FEVR or a familial exudative vitreoretinopathy, which can have subretinal hard exudates, fibrous proliferations all over. It's mostly bilateral and have very high predilection for siblings which would be affected, which can be screened, or either an FFA would be done to identify early cases. PHPV is again a next differential diagnosis where we can see a sectoral cataract and a stalk extending from the disc to the lens. Endogenous endophthalmitis, which can be a mimicker, where there would be circumciliary congestion, no calcification which would be seen, and yes, complicated cataract can be there. So the non-dubious ones like choroidal coloretinal coloboma, which can be there, which can have iris colobomas also, usually involving the inferior nasal side. And yes, toxocariasis, where history of PET exposure would be there, and there would be a peripheral granuloma, what we can see over here, and a peripheral granuloma causing a tractional retinal detachment, which can be made out. In cases where we think of patient is having a retinoblastoma, we need to do an examination under anesthesia. As we can see, when we are evaluating a child, we need to examine the anterior chamber, posterior chamber, and the lymph nodes, face, and other areas to look whether the patient is having complications associated with the retinoblastoma. And retinoblastoma, if it is associated with seeds, vitreous seeds, subretinal seeds, like that. The classification which is most commonly followed right now is the ICRB classification, where group A means a less than 3 mm size of a retinoblastoma, as in this case we can see it can involve posteriorly or peripherally. B, which is a bubble retinoblastoma, more than 3 mm of size with minimal SRF around it. C, which can have circumscribed or subretinal or preretinal or vitreous seeds which are along the tumor mass. Or D, which can have diffuse seeding, as we can see over here in this case, where a retinoblastoma is there and the tumor is having multiple preretinal and subretinal seedings in different areas other than the tumor mass lesion. E, which is massive retinoblastoma necessitating enucleation, like tumor involving more than 50% of the globe, or neovascularization of the anterior chamber, vitreous hemorrhage, or the tumor itself presenting into the anterior chamber. Very rarely we can have diffuse infiltrating retinoblastoma, where there would be a very small mass in the pars plana or pars plicata, which presents again and again as recurrent anterior uveitis or a mass in the anterior chamber. Yes, the next thing is what can be done if you identify that as a retinoblastoma. So early retinoblastoma can be lasered. You can use your green laser, which is available, or other the most common used laser is the red laser, which is for a short wavelength, long duration laser, which is called as a transpupillary thermotherapy, where it gives more heat as compared to the coagulation, and that is how the tumor is treated. If the tumor is far peripheral and small, a triple freeze thaw cryo can be done for it. If the tumor is having vitreous seeding, either a vitreous dust or cloud, we can give intravitreal chemotherapy agents like topotecan or melphalan. And there can be other types of seeds like spears, which we can see. Larger retinoblastomas can be treated with systemic chemotherapies. And yes, the most recent, most in vogue kind of a treatment is the IAC or intraarterial chemotherapy, where the chemotherapeutic agents are injected very close to the ophthalmic artery. The local radiation, if we have the availability of either a ruthenium plaque or an iodine plaque, a plaque brachytherapy can be done, or an external beam radiation can be done. But yes, last but not the least, if it doesn't respond, enucleation can be done for such cases. Most importantly, if the child is having a bilateral retinoblastoma, we should make the parents sit together, discuss, counsel regarding sibling screening and their future conception if they are planning. Try to do a genetic analysis for the child, try to identify the gene mutation, and if they are planning for a second baby, try to explain them regarding the risk and do a chorionic villus biopsy. Yes, whether metastatic evaluation needs to be done. So we need to look at risk factors. If it is intraocular, you need not. If it's extraocular, like optic nerve invasion, extrascleral or intracranial involvement, metastatic workup like bone marrow biopsy or bone scan or CSF tap needs to be done. Children with retinoblastoma do have very good vision. As in this case, we can see the child can have 6/6 vision, or yes, 6/9, depending upon where the tumor is. If the tumor is involving the macula also, the child can have mobile vision. Even larger tumors, the vision can be good enough for the child to be mobile. In group D, eye can be salvaged, and yes, as we can see over here, the vision can be good enough for the patient to move around. Ocular aesthetics, yes, very important. Once you have enucleated, as the child grows, the processes needs to be changed. Cosmetically, it is very important because it
So
affects the
I,
patient's psyche. Yes, last 2 slides, please. Yeah. Re-examination. When should we re-examine the child? Yes, if the child is having retinoblastoma, it has to be followed for the life because of risk of secondary tumors. Sporadic tumors, at least 5 years of follow-up are required, where post-disease regression 3 months for the first year, then 6 monthly for 2 years, and then beyond that yearly for 3 years. So what all we have discussed, how would we approach a case of retinoblastoma? History, family history, Red flags, very important. Examination, slit lamp, IDO, investigations like USG, MRI, rule out other mimickers of RB. If you have identified an RB, classified in ICRB, and depending upon whether it is a local tumor, treat with different modalities which are available: local, focal, systemic, EBRT, brachy, enucleation, sibling screening, genetic screening, metastatic workup if it is required, and salvage the vision. Yes, the children do see. Cosmetic rehabilitation is very important, and follow up. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for a very thorough information in your 8-minute talk. It's amazing.
And the mnemonics and this thing he has used, I think, which will help the postgraduates to remember it very well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Wonderful job, Divansh.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.